They couldn't stop staring. When Sarah stepped onto the luxury yacht in her old-fashioned, oversized outfit, the other guests chuckled under their breath. Whispers spread like wildfire. Who invited her? Is she serious? Surrounded by designer dresses, polished shoes, and sun-soaked cocktails, Sarah looked completely out of place. A few even snapped subtle pictures, already preparing to post their harsh captions. It was supposed to be a glamorous afternoon at sea, but instead, all eyes were locked on the woman they thought didn't belong. What the crowd didn't know was that Sarah wasn't just some random +1 or a last-minute guest, and that outfit they mocked. It wasn't a fashion mistake, it was a message. Sarah stayed quiet, calmly taking in the ocean breeze, while the others kept their distance, too wrapped up in their own judgments to see the bigger picture. But then something happened that made the entire yacht freeze. As the crew lined up at attention and the captain stepped forward, their eyes didn't search the crowd. They were looking straight at her. One of the deckhands nodded respectfully and said something that stopped everyone cold. "Ma'am, your suite is ready." Suddenly, the laughter died. Confusion turned into shock. Whispers turned into silence. Who was she really? And why did the yacht staff treat her like royalty? The real story was just beginning, and not a single person on board was prepared for what came next. People started exchanging confused glances as Sarah followed the steward past the main deck, her pace calm and sure. The same guests who'd been laughing moments earlier were now silent, trying to piece together who she really was. Someone whispered, "Why do they call her ma'am?" Another asked, "Is she like the owner?" No one had an answer. But suddenly, everyone wanted to know. Sarah's suite wasn't just any room on the yacht. It was the top-level private master cabin, the kind usually reserved for billionaires or VIPs. From the windows, she could see the entire coastline stretch into the horizon. Still, she didn't brag, she didn't post anything, and she didn't try to prove anyone wrong. She simply settled in, like she'd done this 100 times before. Back on the deck, tension hung in the air. The guests who'd snickered at her outfit were starting to feel a mix of embarrassment and curiosity. One of them, a woman dressed head to toe in designer labels, turned to her friend and asked, "Have you heard of her before?" Her friend shrugged, pulling out her phone to search. Nothing. No social media, no news mentions. Just blank. Who books a multi-million-dollar yacht and shows up looking like she walked out of a thrift store? And why was she treated with such quiet respect by a crew trained to serve the ultra-elite? Every person on that boat suddenly had the same question, and none of them were ready for the answer. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the yacht lights glowed against the darkening sea, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations turned quiet, and curious glances were now constant. Sarah appeared again on the main deck, this time in the same outfit, simple, loose-fitting linen pants and a faded blouse. No jewelry, no designer handbag, nothing flashy. Still, something about her presence had changed. People moved aside without being asked. Even the chef stepped out of the kitchen to greet her personally. He nodded with a quiet, "It's an honor to cook for you again, ma'am." That word again, ma'am, it echoed through the group like a question they couldn't answer. One of the younger guests, Jason, who had been among the loudest earlier, was now oddly quiet. He watched her from the bar, nursing his drink and fidgeting. He'd just posted a smug story earlier, making fun of her outfit, but now he was reconsidering everything. Quietly, he deleted it. Meanwhile, another guest named Alina, a travel influencer with 1 million followers, was determined to figure it out. She approached one of the crew members, smiling sweetly. "So, who is she asked, trying to sound casual. The crewman only gave a tight-lipped smile and said, "I'm not at liberty to say." That answer said more than it hid. Alina's curiosity turned into obsession. She wasn't just trying to find out who Sarah was, she needed to. Because whatever Sarah was hiding, it was bigger than anyone on that yacht had guessed. The night grew heavier with questions as the yacht drifted through calm waters. Music played softly in the background, but hardly anyone was dancing. Instead, eyes kept flicking towards Sarah, who sat alone at the far end of the deck, sipping from a simple glass of water, gazing out at the sea like she had nothing to prove. No one dared interrupt her now. Even the ones who'd been bold earlier were hesitant, second-guessing every assumption they'd made. Whispers spread again, only now they weren't mocking. They were curious, nervous even. Some thought she might be royalty. Others guessed she was a billionaire in disguise. But no one could explain the way the crew acted around her, not just respectful, but loyal, almost protective. Every time she stood, at least one crew member subtly shifted to keep her in view. It was like they were trained to watch over her. Alina had been digging non-stop. Her phone was filled with blurry photos of Sarah, screenshots of yacht rental listings, and even a voice note where she guessed Sarah might be connected to a secretive family that owned part of the marina. Still, nothing solid. The deeper she looked, the more hidden everything seemed. Then, just before midnight, something happened that pushed the tension to its breaking point. The yacht suddenly slowed. The engines dropped to a soft hum. A separate, sleek black speedboat approached in the dark. One crew member leaned in toward the captain and whispered urgently. Sarah stood up. Everyone froze. As the sleek black speedboat pulled alongside the yacht, a strange silence fell over everyone on board. The crew sprang into action, not with panic, but with precision. They knew this was coming. Guests backed away from the railing, unsure if they were witnessing a rescue, a raid, or something else entirely. Sarah remained calm, standing at the center of the deck, her hands clasped loosely in front of her. The soft white light from the yacht caught her face, and for a moment, she looked both powerful and unreadable. From the speedboat, two figures stepped out, both in dark suits, earpieces visible, their movements efficient and discreet. One of them handed something to the captain, who nodded seriously before turning to Sarah. "They're ready for you now," he said, loud enough for a few nearby guests to hear. Jason, who had been watching from a distance, leaned toward Alina and whispered, "This feels like something out of a spy movie." Alina didn't answer. She was already filming, trying to keep her hands steady. She had no idea what this was, but it was bigger than anything she'd expected. Whatever she posted next could go viral, unless she's shifting. The question hung in the air. Asterisk, who else knew she was going to be Hair Asterisk? And for the first time, Sarah's expression shifted. Calm melted into something sharper, controlled, serious. She turned to face the suited man fully, her voice low but firm. "Someone leaked the itinerary." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The guests looked around, suddenly unsure who to trust. Alina froze, her phone still recording, realizing she might have captured something she wasn't supposed to. Jason stepped back, his face pale, remembering that he'd posted their location earlier and tagged the yacht. The two men exchanged a look, then one of them tapped his earpiece. "We need to move. Now." Before anyone could ask more, Sarah addressed the guests directly. "I didn't come here to be seen. I came here to disappear." But clearly, someone had other plans. The crew sprang into motion. A security protocol was activated, lights dimmed, doors locked. It was clear now, Sarah wasn't just wealthy. She was protected, possibly even in scanned the crowd until they landed on Alina. With a faint smile, Sarah said, "Next time, ask before you film." Then, just like that, she was gone, vanishing into the night, leaving behind only questions, deleted posts, and the memory of the woman no one saw coming. The yacht felt strangely quiet after Sarah disappeared into the night. The guests slowly returned to their drinks and small talk, but the mood had changed for good. No one was laughing now. Whispers turned into questions, and questions turned into quiet regret. Sarah had arrived as the woman everyone dismissed, and left as the person no one could forget. Alina stood by the railing, staring at the waves where the speedboat had vanished. She deleted her footage without thinking twice. She wasn't sure who Sarah really was, but she now understood one thing clearly. Sometimes, the most powerful people are the ones who don't need to prove anything. Alina scrolled through her phone, looking at her own curated posts, all filters and staged smiles. For the first time in a while, it felt empty. Jason sat nearby, replaying the night over and over in his head. He hadn't meant any harm, but his careless post had possibly put someone at risk. That thought lingered as a quiet guilt he couldn't shake. By morning, the yacht docked like nothing had happened, but everyone left different than they'd arrived. The trip meant to show off wealth and style had become a lesson in humility, mystery, and respect. As Sarah faded from view, so did the judgment that had followed her. No last name, no big reveal, just a woman with a quiet kind of power. And in the end, that silence spoke louder than any designer label ever could.